So Zach Cregger's sophomore efforts in his new directorial career was phenomenal, right? Weapons was awesome. In my opinion, which is an unpopular one, it's way better than Barbarian. It just wasn't really my type of movie, and honestly, it just wasn't that good. I mean, sure, it was sad, and it definitely was quite depressing, kind of scary, but it wasn't that good. I mean, come on, what kind of Airbnb company puts two people in the same dilapidated or puts two people in the same home on a dilapidated ass street without them knowing about it? You know, it just seems kind of just a little off the wall. But yeah, but Weapons was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I was very excited just to see what it was going to be about. You know, such a simple title, Weapons. Is it going to deal with guns? Is it going to deal with people that are like turned into weapons? You know, I was very, very curious, right? And the other day, this hilarious skit from Whitest Kids You Know came up because, of course, I follow their page, you know, on YouTube, their channel on YouTube, and Zach Cregger being one of the original founding members of Whitest Kids You Know with Trevor Moore. The video was titled that Weapons is a sequel, and that the first film that he did that revolved around the same scenario was this random movie he's filming in an episode of Whitest Kids You Know, where he's directing Trevor Moore and one of the other members of the sketch show to do they're detectives, and they're coming across this, you know, this horrific crime scene, and the way he's having them act is just so outlandish and making them have their mouths open wide and sounding overjoyous. It's just so funny because this movie in a sense is kind of very much so like that. The only difference is instead of it being joy that these kids are feeling, they're all doing the Naruto run, you know. It's so random, but it was awesome. It was freaking crazy, completely unexpected, but kind of along the lines of kind of how Barbarian was, just someone just doing horrible things to somebody else, you know. But the film follows Julia Gardner, right, fresh off her surfboard, right, of being the Silver Surfette, and she plays Justine, who is this elementary school teacher whose classroom vanishes one day, right? She comes to school the next day, and her class is completely empty except for one kid, Alex. And it turns out that the night before, exactly 2:17, every kid in that class at their home got up, came down, unlocked the door, walked out of their house, and ran down the street. And no one knows where they are, why they did it, and what happened to them. And so the whole town is just in disarray. They're in uproar. They don't know what happened, why it happened. They hold, you know, these press conferences, these board meetings at the school, and all this stuff to try to find out what happened to their kids. And of course, everyone blames Justine. They call her a witch, which is ironic, but you know, they start harassing her. They start trying to come after her because they all think that she has their children. So the movie is pretty well done, right? It follows a bunch of different characters that end up, you know, crossing paths in the end and having just horrible things go down. Justine is then approached by Archer, played by Josh Brolin. Now, apparently, everyone in this movie was recast except for Austin Brame, who plays this character James, who's a junkie. But apparently Pedro Pascal was supposed to be in this movie as the role of Archer. I'm assuming that Josh Brolin plays, and I just got to say, for the record, I am so glad he is not in this movie. I do not think he could have brought the same ferocity that Josh Brolin brings to the role of a father that loses his son. You know, it was just so cool. I feel like Pedro Pascal would have looked like he has in almost every other movie, like just kind of like a weary old man, you know. Like Josh Brolin, you really felt like he missed his son, but he would die and do everything in his power to find his son. And I don't think Pedro Pascal could have pulled that out of his hat of acting chops. But so Archer confronts Justine, and he's like, you know, I need to know what you know. Like, no one's really talked to you. Like, I don't know what the cops have talked to you about, but like, I need answers. You know, we all need answers. And of course, she doesn't know what to say. She just knows that one kid, Alex, is the only kid that survived whatever happened to these kids, and is the only one that still continuously goes to their elementary school. So Benedict Wong, who plays the principal Andrew, he advises Justine to just, you know, take this time off work, to just stay at home, and just to let like the people of this town cope in their own way, because the more that they see her, the more that she's active, out and about, the more people get flustered and want to take her out, or they want to kill her, or do anything to her, because their kids are gone and this woman is just walking around free, and it turns out that she decides to kind of stalk and follow the only kid that survived, Alex, to ask him, like, hey, what did you do that these kids didn't, or what happened, or why are you here, why didn't you leave, like, what, she needs to figure out, like, what's going on. So she ends up playing her own, like, Miss Detective, and follows Alex to his home, goes to his house, and finds out that his mom and dad are, like, comatose. They're literally comatose there, staring at the wall. They're like zombies, pretty much, just sitting there, lifeless. And so she, of course, is worried, wants Andrew to do a house call. She's like, you're the principal, you got to figure out what's wrong with this kid's parents, and maybe there's got to be some explanation as to why this kid wasn't abducted or taken or left, because they weren't stolen or kidnapped. They left of their own free will. They walked out of the house and ran away. And so Andrew sets up a meeting with the family and Alex, right, his parents, and who shows up but Gladys, right? This old lady named Gladys, who is Alex's aunt. And she says she's living with the family because his parents are sick, and she's making sure that Alex still makes it to school, but she is also really sick, and she's just trying to, like, help the family out, and she's only here for a while. So unfortunately, she's not able, Andrew's not able to meet the parents, and it turns out that Alex, his parents, are actually being controlled by his aunt. His aunt is like this witch, in a sense, where she has this random potted plant. It's very much so like Longlegs. Like Longlegs' is whole doll scenario with the random coal heart and like the demonology around the doll possession. It's very similar to this. Like, where is the plant from? Is it from some random continent or island? Where is this? Like, how did she learn this? Does she have a Book of the Dead? Like, how did she become a witch? She's like dying of some sort of disease, and she's able to feed off the energy and essence of people by controlling them, and it's just not enough. And she realizes that what she needs is younger souls, younger spirits, and so she ends up having Alex pretty much take something from all the kids in his class, and then she is able to control all the kids and have the kids come to their house. It's like a whole wild like thing. Like it's very, very outrageous how she goes about it. But you feel so bad for Alex, because his parents are literally being controlled by the aunt. They're like just mindless drones doing what she wants, or actually not doing anything. They're just literally just sitting there. Yeah, there's like some wild scenes, like, definitely. But so meanwhile, Justine is friends with this guy named Paul, right, who's a cop, and he ends up getting back into contact with her after all this stuff happens, and kind of, he's letting her know he's there for her, but turns out he's also like engaged. So they end up having this little like lovers quarrel going on, and he kind of agrees to help her, but at the same time doesn't. Meanwhile, James, who is, like I said, that only character that was apparently still cast in the movie, everyone else was recasted. James is this junkie, and he's trying to, like, break into houses, do this and that to, like, steal and find things that he could sell to get more drugs. And he ends up breaking into Alex's house, only to find out that, yeah, his parents are very much so zombies. And he finds all the kids. They're all, like, they're not hiding, but they're all just standing in the basement. So he ends up going to the cops and tells the cop that turns out to be Justine's friend. It's a really awesome scenario on how they meet. You got to watch the movie for that shit. But he goes to tell the cop and tells him, like, you follow me to this house, because I will show you these kids and I will tell you where these kids are. Long story short, everyone gets fucking possessed, right? Justine and Archer end up showing up to the house, and they find out that, yes, the aunt is controlling everybody. The aunt is the mastermind behind this whole plot. It's absolutely wild. And at the end, like, the parents almost try, Alex's parents try to kill him. It's absolutely awesome how the parents look. They look so feral. Like, I got to give it to Zach for his directing and the makeup effects and everything, because the parents look absolutely terrifying. The mom, holy shit. They don't even show the dad, but the mom, that is some nightmare fuel. And in the end, as everyone's being attacked by all these possessed and everything, the kid ends up using the Gladys's magic or witchcraftery against her, and ends up turning all the kids on her, and ends up having all the kids chase her through the end of the movie. And it is hilarious. Like, there's a lot of comedy throughout this film. It is definitely a horror movie, or a suspense thriller at best, but in the least. But it is hilarious, a lot of the comedic gags that go on in this movie. And again, it was the same thing with Barbarian. I mean, Zach Cregger made his debut on TV, on The Whitest Kids You Know, on writing outrageous sketch shows, right? He was the guy with PCP. He's just a very wildly comedic guy that probably could easily have a dark sense of humor and is able to pull these ridiculous stories out of his mind. And again, Barbarian, I just didn't like it. It wasn't that good, but it had its moments. But Weapons all the way through was just great. Like, you really feel for all these characters. You really get a sense of like what they're all going through, and then when you find out what's really going on with Alex, you feel bad for the kid, and he still gets a shitty end of the stick at the end of the film, but at the end of the film, at least all the kids are found. Like, it is just outrageous. I absolutely loved it. It was so cool. I congratulations, Zach, on a fantastic film. But now, I mean, his next movie is supposed to be Resident Evil, right? He's doing the Resident Evil reboot, but then he had to come out and say that he's doing a reboot with it's going to be like a standalone movie in the world of Resident Evil, but it's not going to feature any of the characters. Paul Thomas Anderson already did that. Yeah, they had the Stars team and Nemesis, but Alice was a character that had nothing to do with Resident Evil. So the fact that he's going in that vein, it's like, I get it. I know characters were used in the original one, but can't we just get a really good, faithful Resident Evil adaptation? I mean, gosh, the last Resident Evil movie that was out, I forgot what it was called. I didn't even watch it, but when Leon was like a Mexican, like, I didn't even watch it because I just didn't. I'd rather play Resident Evil 4 and 5. I'm sorry. I'd rather play Resident Evil 4 and 6, than watch that shit. So I'm kind of nervous to see how exactly he goes about making this Resident Evil movie, but hopefully it's good. And this film showed that he can do great horror, body horror. I mean, the whole death of Gladys was pretty outrageous with the kids, and just the suspense and all the stuff he did throughout was pretty awesome. But I don't know, so we'll have to see how it goes. I am a big Resident Evil fan, so hopefully it's good. But damn it, Zach, Weapons was fantastic, and I am so glad he did this, and I had no idea. And from what I've read, this is true. He released it on August 7th. Technically, I think the 8th, but it came out on the 7th, the day before, which was actually the anniversary of Trevor Moore's death. So congratulations, Zach, and Weapons was a phenomenal feat, and, in my opinion, best 1 out of 2. So let's see how Resident Evil does. The first 2 are your own original ideas, original stories. Now you're going to jump into Resident Evil with an original story, but based on a very much structured franchise. So that already had its own film franchise. So I am very excited and intrigued to see where he takes that. But yeah, Weapons, check it out. It is absolutely awesome. I know I talked a lot about certain things, but you really have to see the movie as a whole to take it all in, because it is just so outrageously awesome. This has been Ghost in the Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. And PS, way better than Strange Harvest. Just saying, Strange Harvest was cool, but not cool, kind of boring. Could have easily been like a mockumentary, which it kind of is, but way better than Strange Harvest. So if I was to say between the two to watch, just go ahead and watch Weapons. But thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.